Alrighty. Geez, it's been a while, huh? Probably our last other lecture was in November. I hope you all had a great winter term. Who think they had the most amazing winter term? Just raise your hands. Amazing. Amazing would be the word. Yeah. A third of you. How many of you think winter term sucks? Nobody. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Well, welcome back. We are now one day into the second semester. I always think of this particular internship as sort of a highlight. You get to hear from your peers. In particular, for those of you who are first year and second year students, this is a great opportunity to start thinking about the internship that you might take. I'm going to let each one of these people do their own thing, introduce themselves, tell where they went, and I've asked them to tell you about what the highlight was, maybe what was frustrating. So, and then ask questions. I mean, this is really, especially for first year and second year students, is a chance for you to really start thinking about where you might do your internship. And then probably, depending on time, I will ask the juniors and seniors are here if they want to share a short bit about their internship. So if you've done your internship and you want to do a 60-second spiel, be prepared. So, start.
Hello everyone, my name is Troy Hollings, and I did my internship with Food Services Incorporated in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Basically, it's a small business that owns 3 restaurants called the 5-8 Club. It's really popular if you're from Minnesota. It was on Travel Channel, Food Wars, and Man vs. Food. And it was a really small company, so I worked alongside the president. So every day I'd be being a representative from management. And I'd say I'd divide what I had to do up into 3 different sections. I had short-term projects which needed to be completed within, 1 or 2 days. I had long-term projects which I was given, and I had the whole internship to complete. Then, since it was in the restaurant industry, I had day-to-day crisis management with the restaurant, because if power goes out at Eli Lilly or something, it's no problem, but if it goes out at the 5-8 Club, no one has any food, and it gets crazy. So I'm just going to talk about one of the biggest projects that I did, which was the recipe book. So basically, a little background. My boss, she was an Alpha Chi here. Her name is Jill Skogheim, and she manages through, she's very vague, and she really believes that you have to figure it out on your own. So my assignment for the recipe book was revamp the recipe book. And I didn't even know what a recipe book was, so I Googled what a recipe book was, and then I learned that I was going to have to take pictures of every single menu item and get the exact specifications for how to do each order at all 3 restaurants. And I ended up, it took me the whole internship to complete that, but now it's actually being used every single day in the restaurant. I made 3 large binders. And generally what I did on a day-to-day basis, it really varied. I'd say I had the projects that I was doing, but sometimes I'd get a call saying, you need to be at the Minneapolis restaurant in 5 minutes. We have a crisis, and then I'd have to go do that. But the main thing I really learned probably was that business, it's not memorizing certain formulas or knowing book knowledge or something, but it's being willing to use all the resources that you have and try to figure out how to solve the problem, and even ask for help if you need it. I had to call the St. Paul Chamber of Commerce one time to look up a PR firm. I mean, generally, it was definitely a very good learning experience, and I'm excited to be back at college.
Yeah. I'm Allison Jones. I just got back from doing my internship with Cummins, and I did the India internship. So most of you are familiar with Cummins, being at school in Indiana. It's the engine company that's out of Columbus, Indiana. And every year, or every fall, they send up to 3 interns over to Pune, India, which is a large city near Mumbai, for an internship there. So I was one of the 3 interns that went this year for almost 5 months in India. And I worked in the new and recon parts division of Cummins, which is essentially like if someone doesn't, or if you have an old part of your engine that doesn't work anymore, you can ship it to our department. They will basically go through and take out any parts that don't work, add in new parts, and sell it back to the dealerships as like a used part that's as good as new at a reduced price. So I worked there. It's a very new organization in India. It's huge in the US. Most of their parts in the US that they sell are recon parts. But in India, there's such a different mindset when it comes to purchasing that it's not as big of an organization there. So it's almost like a startup. So you have this huge company that's really well known, especially in India, yet we have this segment of it that isn't so well known and that was really like working in a new startup business. So there I had 2 different projects that I worked on. My main one was being a project coordinator for a new plant that we were building. So we had a plant that was kind of tacked on to a different plant of ours, and we wanted to build a whole new plant at the Cummins mega site, which is this huge site outside of Pune where they're trying to bring in almost all of the plants throughout India into one place. So it's very up and coming. The first plants have gone up in the last, I think, 2 years, and right now there are 3 plants there with a bunch more planned to come within like the next 5 years. So it's a really big project that they're doing, and we wanted to move our international plant to that location. So when I got there, they were just in the process of applying for basically permission to do that and trying to figure out how much funding it would take and everything else that was needed. So I got there, I had no idea really what I was doing before I went, and my boss, who was actually the VP of my section, the new and recon parts, he basically said, you're going to be in charge of this entire move and the building and the move and all that goes with it. So I did anything from filling out legal documents to going to different governmental offices to work on interviews, to hosting weekly meetings with all of the functional heads to try and make sure that everyone was on the same page with their timelines, their funding, everything else that they needed, the product lines that were about to come up, and everything like that. I also put together a huge workshop for all of our team members. So we had the functional heads from each function, so HR, finance, facilities, everything like that. And they each assigned a team member that would be a part of my team that would be in charge of pretty much everything that they needed to do. And I had a day where we all got together. I planned out a bunch of things. We worked on the timeline, we worked on the budget, we worked on everything that needed to be done at the start with everyone there to discuss it. So part of the problem was my team was sitting in 3 different locations throughout India. So a lot of our meetings would be over phone, which in India isn't exactly the easiest thing to do, as Gary would know. So it was really nice to get everyone in one place where we could talk. So the problem, most internships that you would do with Cummins, especially in India, you would be given one project where you start and finish that project pretty much on your own. You have an advisor that you would go to, but at the end you would present your findings. So my project will still be continuing. They're doing groundbreaking next month, I believe, if things are still according to plan. So someone else had to take over my position when I left. So I had to do that transition at the end too, which was really interesting to learn how to transfer everything to someone else and essentially like leave my job and transfer it over. The other project that I worked on was in the marketing department. We developed a newsletter that would go out to all of the dealers across India, and they would then distribute it to some of their customers. So it was a newsletter just kind of about happenings with dealerships, what's new at Cummins, what kind of parts we had that were new, any major milestones that were coming up with Cummins, anything like that. So through that I did some dealer interviews where I would go to the dealerships or call them on the phone and just kind of find out about what their dealership is like, what they do on a daily basis, what they really love about Cummins, how long they've been with Cummins, anything like that. So I also got to see not only kind of the plant side and the corporate side, but also then the dealership side and how they sell their products to everyone. So the biggest thing for going to India for me was the fact that I couldn't study abroad and do my internship, so I decided I would combine them both. And I think that this was a great way to do it because we got to travel a lot on the weekends. We had a week-long holiday in the middle where we got to go to northern India and see, you know, the Taj Mahal and New Delhi and Delhi. And it was just a great experience. So if you're looking to do something like that, I would highly recommend not only this internship, but any international internship. It's hard because not only do you have to get to know a new working environment, but you have to get to know a new culture in general, which was, I think I speak for all three of the interns that went to India this year. That was the hardest thing, was getting used to the cultural changes and just the paying attention to deadlines and things like that. Here, if you tell someone, I need something done by Friday at noon, you're gonna have it by Friday at noon, or you're gonna have an email or a call saying, hey, I can't get it, let's figure out how we can do it. In India, if you tell someone I need it done by Friday at noon, they'll say, yeah, sure, you'll have it, and you'll get it 3 weeks later, maybe. So just a total difference in the way that culture plays into business and how you handle it, but I think that's one of the biggest learning experiences from going to India or going anywhere else abroad. So.
I'm Austin Sheely. I completed my internship with American Education Group in Grand Rapids, Michigan. The CEO of the company is Pete Rupert. He came and spoke last semester at one of the lectures, so you got the chance to meet the CEO of the company. He's a remarkable individual. Specifically, I worked with the new school opening team. They're in charge of the planning, the approval, all the logistics behind opening the new schools in the Fusion Academy division. Currently, they have 9 schools in operation in California. They're looking at expanding into New York, specifically Manhattan and Long Island earlier this fall. I was in charge of the projects that went to the board and asking for their approval. So within those presentations called SOAR documents, I did everything from marketing analysis, enrollment analysis, different financial models, lots of just kind of comparisons to previous schools that opened in California, as well as studied market competitors and laid out different systems and processes from learnings from the San Francisco market. And the reason why I mentioned San Francisco is the schools, the Fusion Academy division was founded in San Diego. They made an expansion last year to the Bay Area, so in San Francisco and outside of San Francisco and San Mateo. And the enrollment figures weren't where they, had foreseen them being. And so I was coming into my internship as these numbers were coming in, and so there was kind of a little hysteria as to, oh my gosh, what are we doing wrong? And so I got to see how a team kind of came together, really dug into the numbers, trying to figure out, which marketing outreach technique is the most effective when you're going into a new market. So that was extremely interesting, and I took those findings, applied them to my research in Manhattan and Long Island, and helped me to really develop the SOAR presentation, which ended up getting approved in December. And I was fortunate enough to be able to sit through that board conversation, listen to the investors, ask questions, talk about the document that I prepared. So that was really a valuable experience. Like Troy, there's a bunch of different day-to-day things that come across because I was working in a small office. There's probably only 25 employees in Grand Rapids. So, I'd be pulled in on different accounting projects to, redoing an a scholarship schedule and how the payments were going to be issued. So, there was some variety in that. But I did a lot of work, like I said, with the new school opening team and the marketing team, just kind of on outreach objectives. Working for Pete and just at AEG in general, you're going to find that setting goals and striving to achieve those is huge. So one thing I did take away from the internship is kind of how to really set goals, not just, having them out there in space, but putting them on paper, developing action lists, timelines, owners, and that's really how things get done in business, or at least the company that I was working for. So, effective management is kind of sticking to those, and when you come across problems, addressing them right away, and just having the courage to stick up and, kind of, I guess, like fight for what you believe in, fight for what you're passionate about, and really go through with it. Over winter term, I had the opportunity to kind of revamp the budgeting system. When I came in, I guess the old CFO was on her way out, and we brought in a new CFO, and so there was kind of a time where we were looking at the books and seeing that there were, everything rolled into certain accounts at the end, but I guess those intermediate accounts where different schools' budgets, they'd roll into, those accounts you could not easily trace back, like indirect costs, which for a new and growing company, like, you need to be able to monitor that stuff. So I kind of redeveloped this system as to how the accounts were going to be situated, what was going to roll onto the final spreadsheet, the final income statement and balance sheet. And so I got to work closely with the accounting department as well as the CFO and see how they strategically analyze, financial statements. And so that was a very great experience. But overall, the one thing that I can take from my internship is just like how much I grew as a person. Like I said, Pete is big about setting goals. The first thing he asked me, I got to talk to him probably 5 or 6 times when I'm one-on-one, and it was, Austin, what are your goals in life? Like, and beforehand it was like, well, I think I want to do this, this, and this. And he's like, well, that's not good enough. It's not on paper. And so just kind of over the course of the semester, I got to interact with him, kind of set personal goals, set these timelines and action lists for myself, and just really grew a lot as a person, learned how to interact with people in an office, and just, like Troy said, it's not about, formulas or anything. It's just having, common sense and the willpower to, go out and just do things and get it done. So the biggest thing I would say is, I guess, going forward on any internship and in college, set priorities, set goals, and, have a plan and stick to it. So, yeah.
Hi, everyone. My name's Erica Bennett, and I'm a junior. I had my internship last semester at Eli Lilly. I started in May and ended in December. My role at Lilly, I worked in the central marketing organization. The marketing internship at Lilly is brand new. Usually it's just finance. So at Lilly, there's 4 different divisions: biomedicines, oncology, diabetes, and emerging markets. And the central marketing organization kind of spreads across all of those, and it provides the tools and the resources and of marketing and the philosophy of marketing to all the different marketers in those different 4 groups. So what I did when I was at Eli Lilly was I revamped an internal communication platform called Marketplace. And it was a website that was supposed to house all the tools and the resources for marketers and our philosophy, so that when they're going, doing their day-to-day job, they can go and look for a certain point of view or a white paper, which are different philosophy things that Lilly, to help them do their job more effectively. The problem is that Lilly, we didn't have good communication across business units, which is like oncology, diabetes, or across our different geographies. So it is a global company, so we have locations all in China, Japan. So my role was to I created a focus group that included marketers from different geographies and business units. Because when you think about it, people in the US and marketers in China and Australia necessarily don't communicate the same way that we do in the US. So definitely in my internship had to think about marketers and people more on a global level than just on how we maybe communicate in the US. And we ended up hiring an external vendor, Allegiant, who's out of Indianapolis. And so I got experience managing an external vendor who actually did the build. I'm not good at computers, so I didn't do that. They did the whole build and all the configurations of the website. And it was a really great experience to learn how to manage an external vendor, especially when I'm 20 and they're 40 and they come in and I'm like, all right, today we're going to, this is our objective for the meeting. This is what we need to get done. I don't we don't like how you're doing this. We actually had a big problem with them. They weren't kind of doing what we wanted them to doing, or they weren't as efficient. They had an internal communication problem, and so it was. I learned a lot by having to manage them, setting expectations, who's going to do what, dates that we wanted things turned into us by, and figuring out how they internally can communicate better, since we'd tell one person this and then they'd do something, someone else on their team would do something else because they hadn't talked, and it was a whole big problem. But at the end, I launched a new website that will be used by marketers across the whole globe, so all marketers in Lilly. So it was a pretty big project. I was really excited that I had something that I knew would make a big impact, and I actually got to train the person that will be taking my role. So that was really neat to know that it wasn't just kind of like, oh, we'll just find something for her to do. It was an actual job that they hired a full-time employee after I left to complete my job. And then that was my main project. And then on the other side, so that the marketplace website was just one communication vehicle that the central marketing organization uses. So they were creating a communication plan, because right now they're not effectively communicating to all the marketers in different countries and different business units. And so I did all the benchmarking for the whole communication strategy. So I spent a lot of time on the internet just kind of trying to figure out what other companies in marketing are doing to reach marketers across the globe. I had no idea I kind of knew what benchmarking meant, but I really didn't. So I spent a lot of time Googling things and finding, like Coca-Cola, what do they do? Companies that are similar in size, which they have geography where they cover a lot of different countries, and then I presented that to my boss and the communication team, and they loved it, so that was good. And then my biggest achievement, I guess, was I got to present my proposal for Marketplace to the Chief Marketing Officer, Rob Brown, of the entire company, and his staff. So a lot of people dream, I heard, of presenting to him and getting to be in his presence, because he's just like a god over there. And as an intern, I was allowed to give the whole presentation. I learned a lot about transitions from one slide to the next and how to make slides simple. And overall, my internship was just a great experience. I learned a lot about vendor management and how to communicate effectively with people, especially when they're not delivering what you expected from them. And I guess one big thing I learned is if you do make a mistake, definitely admit to it and don't pretend that you didn't do it, because that shows a lot of integrity in you as a person, and you'll be more respected for it at the end. So that was my internship.
Great. Well, I'm Andrew Kahn.
I interned at ExactTarget in Indianapolis last semester. And so ExactTarget's a little bit different than some of the other companies we've talked about. The first thing is that they're a software company, and they kind of have that exact sort of culture. And the culture at ExactTarget really did a lot to determine my experience. So if you think about maybe a bank and everyone shows up in suits and a tie, at ExactTarget, if you show up in khakis, you're pretty dressed up. So I got very used to thinking of business casual as jeans and a polo, and on Fridays an ExactTarget t-shirt, and now apparently I got to go away from that. But so I worked in the corporate sales division. So in ExactTarget, it's kind of in like a hyper growth situation. So I actually found out about it from two DePauw grads who I think have already come down this year and spoke to you guys, RJ Tallier and Andrew Thayer, and both of them were management